again.
I'm Jessica Gold. This is my husband Robert. This is Alexandria. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a story on pretty much her and her life. So being pregnant with our first child, life was wonderful. My pregnancy was as expected. I had the nausea for 3 to 4 months. I had a cute belly, the restless sleep, and the glow that only onlookers could see. Alexandria was born right on time, went into labor on my due date. She was born without intervention. She was a healthy pink, 7 pounds, 5 ounces. Perfect. Our lives now felt complete. We stayed in the hospital for about 36 hours, which was great, and then we were discharged home. There's no place like home. Our first few days at home were nothing that you can prepare yourself for. Sleep deprivation, a crying baby that feeds every 2 hours, among other things, makes for a long night. Thankfully, I had support at home. My husband Robert was unfortunately laid off, but it worked out great for us, as well as my mom was around quite a bit. A couple of days being at home, our midwife, during a routine checkup, noticed that Alexandria was a little bit yellow, and she explained to us what jaundice was. Yellowing of the skin, the whites of the eyes tinting a little bit yellow, pale stools. And that normally jaundice would be something that would be gone at this point, not something that would occur at this point. So she suggested that we should try to give her as much natural light as possible, try feeding her in front of a window while she was naked, or having her resting in a bassinet in front of the window to give her natural light to help the jaundice to disappear. A week or so went by and she was still yellow. Rob and I kept thinking that she went through phases of looking like it was getting better, she was getting pinker, her stools were changing colors, but our midwife seemed to disagree. On April 1st, our midwife suggested we do some blood work, just to be safe. Through a bit of convincing, as we were hesitant first parents, we said yes. She poked her heel, took a sample, and she left. Not even 3 hours later, our midwife called us back. I put her on speaker so that Rob could also hear. And she told us that our daughter, unfortunately, was very sick, and we were to take her to McMaster Children's Hospital right away. The doctor there was waiting. And to pack for a couple days. That's not something you want to hear. Alexandria's bilirubin, which I thought was something to do with the belly, but anyway, was about 127, which was the normal number is under 10. Said we hung up, we sat, we stared at a wall, we stared at Alexandria, and then we just began to pack, not knowing what to expect. The longest 15-minute ride ever to the hospital. Once we got to McMaster, Alexandria was seen by numerous doctors and nurses, stayed and emerged for quite some time, and a couple hours later they ended up doing blood work and some other tests and exams, and she ended up being admitted. After putting her through every test and procedure you can imagine, they came to the diagnosis of biliary atresia. That is a condition where the common bile duct, or the main drain to keep the liver, was either blocked or not developed. For Alexandria, her bile duct was blocked, but non-repairable kind that would not be fixed with a stint. She underwent a 9-hour procedure a couple days later called a cassage, which is where they take a part of your small bowel and connect it to your liver to create a drain. When we were told to go see her, it was a life-changing moment for us. Tubes and lines, machines and monitors everywhere. But she was alive and doing well. Her recovery process had begun. She was taking leaps and bounds. Doctors were pleased with her progress and discharged her home 10 days later, only 3 days before her father's 30th birthday. We are home with our daughter again for the first time. There's no place like home. Approximately a month after we were home, she was perfect. She was pink, she was happy, her blood work all seemed to stabilize. Life goes on, right? Well, wrong. Little did we know that in June she would take a turn, and the yellowness of her skin returned. Her eyes started to change colors again, and again the stools went pale. My mommy instincts kicked in. Something was wrong. I kept calling the doctors, the nurses, and I was insistent that they do something to find out what was going on. They brought her back in, did blood work, and yep, her bilirubin was climbing again. Her side procedure had failed. They made an appointment for us to see her GI doctor at the hospital, who suggested that we go to Sick Kids. She's not a sick kid anymore. Suggested we go to Sick Kids to meet the transplant team and kind of get a feel for what could be down the road for us. So after that appointment, it was only 4 days we were admitted at Sick Kids to go through the process of figuring out if she would be suitable for transplant. My husband and I, along with my mother and stepfather, were present every day for those 5 days. Again, every test you can think of to see if she's suitable for transplant. We were learning everything you could about the transplant process, learning everything and beyond about every organ in your body, which right now could be possibly a doctor of some sort. We asked every question came to mind. My mom actually ended up finding out that, we all found out that there's a living donor program for the liver transplant. And my mom filled out the application and was right there going to be her living donor. So we stayed there for 5 days, and they said that they would call us and let us know if they think she's suitable for transplant. So we went home, and they said within a week we should get a call. Well, it was only 2 days, and they had decided that yes, she does need a transplant, and yes, she is suitable for transplant. So again, the waiting happened. About 8 days following that, we got another phone call. It was the transplant coordinator again at Sick Kids, and they actually had a liver for Alexandria, only 8 days. That was another phone call that made me stop, stare at her. She's jumping around in her exerciser. She seemed to be a normal, healthy, happy kid, just she was a little bit yellow. We didn't expect it that soon. We hadn't packed yet. They told us to pack and get prepared, but 8 days, I thought the waiting list would be months. So this was a phone call that told me that she was now fasting. She's now going to become a cranky baby. I had to call my husband. I had to call my parents. We made the arrangements. So we drove down to the longest 45 minutes ever to Toronto, my stepfather and I in Alexandria, while the rest of them met us at the hospital. The next morning, we were giving our daughter away for the second time, trusting her into the hands of the medical staff for what we were told would be a 12-hour procedure. We hung our heads, we walked into the waiting room, silence, my mom, Robert, myself, my mom, and my stepfather. We saw families in that waiting room come and go. The silencing was honestly deafening. The 12-hour mark, there's only 2 families left. What I say is us and them. It just seemed to be 2 groups. Every time a sound made, everybody would jump and look at the door, hoping it was their loved one's doctor coming in. This time it was ours. Surgery went great. She was on her way to recovery. We could see her once they got her into ICU. So this picture back here is with bravery beads, and they all symbolize something that she had gone through pre-transplant and post-transplant. The next 4 weeks post-transplant was full of turbulence. She had good days, she had bad days. But she was full of smiles nonetheless. She even tried to laugh when she had a breathing tube in. That can't be comfortable. She overcame so many hurdles and achieved a lot of bravery beads, as you can see in the picture. There are tests, there are ultrasounds, there's blood pokes, there's everything that you could think of that would happen. They symbolize something. And to me, it's a string of strength. On her day of discharge, it was a day with such mixed emotions, but happiness overruled the most. There's no place like being home. Just like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, it had to be said 3 times. There's no place like home until it became true for us. The 3rd time we took our baby girl home was the best day of our lives, and she hasn't looked back since. So as you can see here, she is today running around rampant like a 2-year-old, full of joy, happiness, perseverance. She's an outstanding individual that I look up to, even though she's only 2 feet tall. But through the grief of another family, we were able to have her here with us today through the skills of the Sick Kids Hospital and the medical staff and research from liver diseases and whatnot make her able to be here. So I want to thank everybody here for coming to support such a great cause to us, and hope we all have a great night.
Keep it going for Jessica and Alexandria. Just a reminder of why we're here tonight. This wonderful little girl, Alexandria gone wild. Of course, it's so important that we continue to support research and programs for Alexandria and for families coping with liver disease. So with that, I do want to announce the 2nd course, and then we'll be speaking or hearing from our next guest speaker after that. Enjoy.